Invasive plants or trees like the Bradford pear might be a beautiful sight in the spring, but Dean of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics, Curt Coffman, is here to tell us how they are causing more harm than good. Thanks for joining me today, Curt.
It's great to be here, Allison.
So for those watching, first of all, just kind of go over what is an invasive plant.
Okay. An invasive plant or any invasive species is something that is not native to the area and then typically lacks any kind of control in nature. So there's nothing hunting it, eating it, consuming it. There are no insects that chew on the leaves, and then they tend to reproduce really, really well, and so they can come into an area and populate very quickly and often outcompete native plants.
Okay, how does this affect our local area?
Okay, there's a lot of ways. Unfortunately, a lot of invasive plants originated because we brought them here. Starting back with multiflora rose, which my dad as a farmer was told, oh, this will be a great natural fence. And or with honeysuckle plants that they thought would feed wildlife, but they're actually the equivalent of M&Ms in terms of nutrition. and so we planted them thinking they were good, and then when we didn't understand that, then things that they start doing is some of them like Asian honeysuckle secrete chemicals from their roots into the soil that keep other seeds from germinating. And so if you have honeysuckle in your forest and it looks pretty, pretty flowers, pretty berries, but then you'll notice there are no new trees sprouting in your woods. Once your older trees die out, all you'll have is a bunch of 15-foot honeysuckle just completely, taking over your forest. And so if you grow timber or you just like to have a forest, if you have a small woodlot, it can take it over. Winter creeper is another example of a landscaping plant that was like a ground cover. And you go into any of our parks here in Knox County, and you'll see it all over it covers everything. It lives up to its name. It not only covers the ground, though, it grows up trees and can harm trees as well. But it literally covers the ground. If you like spring flowers, you won't see them anymore. Because it literally just completely invades and keeps other plants from growing. Bradford pears are very pretty when they flower. However, they smell pretty bad. So if you walk around them, they're not nice. However, their fruit gets carried by birds, and the seeds are dropped into woods, and they take over a woodlot very much like the honeysuckle does, where they secrete chemicals in the soil that will keep other trees from growing, and then they're also dangerous from just a landowner perspective, is that they're very brittle trees, and so they break really easily. So if there's a windstorm or some other storm and you're under that tree, you could be injured very quickly. They split and so are very harmful from a physical standpoint as well.
You mentioned your dad being a farmer. What kind of effect does it have on our agriculture and our food supply that we produce here?
Sure. It's estimated, estimated that the United States Department of Agriculture, that we spend over $26 billion a year to combat invasives, from growing in the fields and just spraying them so you can then plant your crop, to again, if you're growing timber, which is a crop for some people, it's very hard to start the next generation of plants when these invasives are in there. They also can choke up, they can grow into ditches, drainage ditches. So drainage boards spend a lot of money just spraying these invasives, like kudzu, which is now in Knox County, which was thought it would control erosion. It doesn't control erosion, but it will cover your barn. And so again, billions of dollars are being spent. It's estimated in the last 50 years globally, we've spent over $1.3 trillion battling invasive species.
Yeah, that's a huge industry then. What are the long-term risks?
Well, there are, from a forest perspective, you lose your forests. Indiana has some beautiful forests, and actually, very personally, part of my parents' farmland, included about 100 acres of woods. It's now an Indiana nature preserve, and it was along the Whitewater River in eastern Indiana. 10 years ago there was no honeysuckle, there was no autumn olive, there was no multiflora rose. Now it's everywhere, and so again, this area that was set aside for its unique forest characteristics, as well as being protecting a watershed. Very soon, we're not going to see the reproduction of those trees, and it's getting harder and harder just to hike in there. So that's one concern. Some plants are poisonous, and so if you graze livestock, and you have to be very aware of what's in your pasture. And some of these invasive plants, like garlic mustard, are toxic to animals and to people, and so there's the health risk as well.
Are there any efforts going on locally, groups that are trying to combat this? I've seen a lot of Bradford pears on campus and
Sure.
all around Vincennes.
Knox County has actually been a leader in terms of really trying to address the invasive issue. The Knox County Soil and Water Conservation District was the first district to actually hire a full-time employee to work with landowners to combat invasives. And then out of that, a nonprofit was formed called the Knox County CISMA, which stands for Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. That's a mouthful. And it's a group of volunteers that take their own time and their own effort to remove invasives, mainly from our public lands. So if you might be in Wabash Trails Park or up at Hillcrest Park, Fox Ridge, and you'll see this wonderful group of volunteers, removing invasives. And then we have some landowners that have come to me as dean and said, what can we do? We know, VU has planted a lot of Bradford pears in the past, and there's currently an ordinance that keeps us from that you cannot sell Bradford pears and about 70 other invasive species in the county, and that's been a great first step. But the Bradford pears were already here. Mm-hmm. A local farmer, Ray McCormick, actually approached VU and said he would remove about 20 pear trees at his own cost and then plant natives. And so we're working with him where we're going to be identifying which trees to remove. I mean, there's over 100 Bradford pears, so removing 20 is a good first step. If there's some people that love those white flowers, there'll still be some of those on campus. But we know, we just know to be a good neighbor, it's something we should do. And so by fall, we should have at least 20 native trees planted. We're looking at planting with trees that flower, like redbuds and dogwoods, really beautiful, trees in their own right that are native. We also are excited. We own a nature preserve in just across the river called Robeson Hills, and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources helps manage it for us. And they have spent well over $50,000 in the last 3 years to try to remove invasive species, from hiring someone with a grinder, which is this really cool machine that literally grinds up mature trees. So it's grinding up the autumn olive and the multiflora rose, and as well, and then reseeding it. We have part of Robeson as a prairie, so we reseeded that as a prairie. Where the invasives were coming in, but then they have today they're spraying $15,000 worth of invasives on the southern part of Robeson Hills, south of US 50. So we have some great partners that are helping VU be a good steward of the resources that we have.
Okay, well, I mean, this is all great information, stuff that I didn't know but ahead of time, so I hope some of our viewers can glean some of that. Where is a list, if people are looking for a list of invasive species, where can they go to find that?
I would say the easiest way would be to contact the county commissioners, because it's one of their ordinances, or the Knox County Soil and Water Conservation District would also have that information as well. And they have someone who is an invasive specialist that can definitely talk to them about what they can do and how they can better serve. And also, the SISMA group sells native plants for landscaping. And so at the Rendezvous, as well as at our farmers markets, you'll find them selling native plants that you can replace maybe if you found you have some burning bush or some invasives, they'll tell you what kind of plants would work well to replace them.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Curt. I've certainly learned a lot, and this was a lot of very useful information.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.